Hello reader, come closer. I am just thinking about December. I don't have any plans for December, so what am I even here to talk about? I think what I'm here to talk about is the difficulty that I personally have of not planning ahead when it comes to my reading. What's in the past few years, I've definitely been trying to achieve a low TBR. You know, when I joined BookTube, I definitely had a ton of books. I was gathering a lot of books. That had happened before already, of course, but when I started watching BookTube, definitely these sort of like impulses, the stimuli for reading new books was definitely like at an all-time peak, and I was definitely like pushed in that regard to buy more books, and to like there were so many new books that I was hearing about that sounded interested in buying all of that and all that type of thing. And then after a few years I realized like this is kind of overwhelming me, the amount of books that I have at my disposal, and the sort of feeling of like I want to read you but I just don't have the time for it. And so I decided at that point in time to do a 0 TBR, which I managed 3 years ago, I think, at this point in time. And then I did like a splurge, because originally my plan with that had just been like, let's blank the slate, let's start over and like have a real reflection on whether everything that was on my TBR prior, whether I still wanted it, reading all of that so that I could just start with a blank slate and have everything on my TBR be fresh, be new to me. However, then I quickly realized that that just brought me into a sort of like new overwhelming number. The number was way reduced from where it had started out. I think we were still under 30 books at that point in time, but it was once again starting to feel quite overwhelming, where I wanted to get to so many things, but I still had books on my shelves that I also wanted to get to, that I just wasn't getting through at a pace that allowed me, or that I felt allowed me, to pick up new stuff instead. And so we did another purge. And so we went out of 2024 technically having completed the 0 TBR. However, there were books that I had left off of the 0 TBR project, which meant I went into 2025 with 12 books. And at this point in time, we are at the 12 books again. It is November 29th. I have 12 books on the TBR. And I think we've been here quite a few times throughout the year. The TBR will have grown, I think, to a maximum of some 18 throughout the year at certain times. I don't think it ever went under 10 throughout the year, but potentially it did. It's not like I kept a really firm grasp of the numbers neither. Maybe I want to do that for next year, just have like an overview somewhere of like the amount of books at the end of each week, to kind of pull a statistic from that, just because of the fact that I love statistics like that. But yeah, the point here is that we're once again at 12, and I'm still feeling like some overwhelm from that. I'm still kind of feeling like, oh yeah, but there's all these books that I want to get to, but I have these 12 books on my TBR that I should get to first. And while it isn't the case that they are necessarily lingering long, the problem I feel that creates this feeling is the fact that I'm always looking ahead. I'm always planning ahead for what can go on to my December TBR, what can go on my January TBR. And December this year has made that really, really clear. Because basically my intention for the month of December for this year was no plans. I am going to make no plans ahead of time. In December, I am going to embrace what I want to be my future reading habits, which is just spur of the moment. Oh, this is what I feel like reading right now. Let me find a way to purchase it, see if I can borrow it, see if I have access to the audiobook, whatever. Get this book and start reading it. However, the difficulty, it turns out, is my brain. because in the month of November there have been many plans that have crossed my mind. And I'm not necessarily saying that none of these plans are gonna come true, but I was planning not to plan. So let's just go over some of the plans that I've made for December, bringing you through my thought process with them. And you can comment on whether you want to see one thing or another, but as indicated, I want it to just be about the joy of reading and picking up whatever I want to be reading in the moment. And so I don't know whether I'll even be able to do that, because I feel like I've been in this pattern of planning what I'm reading ahead of time for such a long period of time already that it's just a habit at this point in time, a habit that is difficult to break. But so, the first plan that made its way into my December life, let's make a side note. There is one plan that I have for the month of December, and that is to read perhaps the fourth book in the Terra Ignota series, because at the beginning of the year I did set out to read 2 series over the course of 2025, and that was gonna be the Grace of Kings, so the Dandelion Dynasty, and Terra Ignota. And so I had already set out from the beginning of the year that the 4th book in the Terra Ignota series was going to be read in the month of December. And I have to admit that my experience with Terra Ignota has not been the best, as in I cannot keep my attention with it very well, but I also want to complete that Herkiet prompt, so I'm just gonna listen to it. It's not like I don't hate it, and I do enjoy the experience of it, but I'm just constantly lost with it. But so technically speaking, that is the first plan I made for December. And at some point I had also put some books into my December TBR. I no longer know which ones they were, but I removed them when I decided that I was gonna make December plan free. So let's consider that our blank slate, okay? December is plan free, nothing goes into that month except for perhaps the stars. And that's where things start to go awry. Because whenever I'm thinking of something I want to do, I'm always thinking of where I'm going to be slotting it in. And I have 2 friends who are currently going through a zero TBR process. This is Daniela and Kitty, and I will have their channels linked down below in the description box. And so they are both trying to achieve a zero TBR by the end of the year. In the case of Daniela, I think it's like a pure zero TBR. In the case of Kitty, it is kind of similar to my zero TBR, where there are some exceptions. In her case, the exceptions are every book that she has added in 2025. Those can still stay over and move into 2026, but everything purchased before 2025 needs to be gone. And that TBR zero spirit has touched my heart. Because as indicated, I felt a little bit, not overwhelmed necessarily with my TBR, but I still felt like there was a lot on that TBR card that didn't necessarily reflect the things that I'm like most excited to read. And I am taking lessons from that. So half of like basically almost everything on my TBR card is coming from a subscription service. Now, not all of them are just subscription books. One of them is a special edition that I decided to get from that particular company. I think Illumicrate in that case. But like 6 books, for example, are 2 full series coming off of the Broken Binding subscription. And yeah, I need to be more conscientious with the Broken Binding subscription and making sure that I really want to get the books for that subscription and not just getting them because I want to keep on the subscription or because I really love the aesthetics of the editions. So I did in the end skip the final series that they were doing over the months of November, December. I would have probably done that regardless because I did read the first book in that duology and I didn't really enjoy it. But yeah, that is the energy we need to take it into 2026. I am getting the first subscription for 2026 because I've read 2 out of the 3 books within that series already, so I know that I like that series and I do think that that's going to be a little bit of an impulse for me to reread the series and then complete it. But yeah, hopefully we'll go into 2026 with more of a strict sort of like skipping policy. If that means that I lose the subscription, then that should just be the sign sign that the subscription is not for me and that their picks aren't for me. The fact that I have so many things on there that aren't necessarily the things that I want to really get to, that aren't things that I bought in the moment because of the fact that I knew I was going to get to them soon, that has made me less excited about what is on that TBR cart, because I feel the majority of things that I really sort of intentionally buy, that gets off of my TBR quite quickly. The one that is still on there, the Impusium by Olga Tokarczyk, is on there because I couldn't get to it within the month of October. It was basically the final book that I had to decide to leave off of my October TBR in the end, because the page count was just too big for it. Otherwise, it would have also already been read and it would have just been books that came through subscription services. And so, yeah, big lesson for 2026, but that just means that there is a ton of stuff on the TBR card at the moment that I had never really made plans for when I was picking it up, and therefore they are lingering. And so combine that feeling with the fact that I have two friends who are doing a Zero TBR project, and I just love seeing their progress, seeing them talking about reading books off of that TBR card, made me think, you know what if I secretly try to get another TBR Zero in the month of December? What if I make a secret Every Book All at Once version 2 for the month of December and read all of them? It is not happening, guys. Don't get excited about it just because I've mentioned it here. But as indicated, I want the month of December to be a month of impulse reading, a month of reading stuff that I'm really excited about, and that would be the opposite of that. I'm not saying that I could not have a good time with those books. I'm not saying that I would not feel amazing if I were to accomplish it within the month of December. I'm just saying that that is not what I want my December to be about. I don't want my December to be about getting to Zero TBR. That was last December, and I just don't want to repeat that this year. That's not saying that I'll never repeat that, but not this year, okay? This is not the intention I set myself for December 2 months ago. And I don't feel passionate enough about it to overrule that vibe. I definitely feel, if I'm weighing out these two options, that I want the impulse heavy December where I pick up whatever books I'm really excited about reading in that moment. But yes, that was the first real big plan that slid into my December, and that I was like, no. Next up, themed vlogs. There are a few themed vlogs that I would still like to do. Some kind of factor into that CBR Zero plan. And at some point in time I was thinking like, ooh, I could do that themed vlog, I could that themed vlog. Then I was thinking like, no, like we are not making plans for December. But still I was thinking maybe I could do like a spinner wheel and have the spinner wheel decide between these different themed vlogs. So let's talk about them. First up, the idea of reading a full trilogy within one vlog. So my friend Kitty, who I've mentioned before, she does this throughout the year. So she has multiple themed vlogs in which she reads an entire trilogy, or an entire series is the better word. And then she talks about her experience with that series in that vlog. I was thinking I could do that for the Magician trilogy by Raymond E. Weiss, which is the oldest trilogy that is still on my TBR card. So it made sense for me to fully tackle that series if I was going to fully tackle a series within the month of December. And yeah, so that was the first idea. Like, get at least one of these series down. But I will say the main motivation for me to put this idea into there is the idea of wanting to enter 2026 with a TBR card that is lower than I went into 2025 in. At this point in time, I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea that that is not going to happen, and I'm trying to come to terms with that. And so I'm trying to avoid getting to books on my TBR card in the month of December. Another idea for the themed vlog is like restoring faith in humanity. This is a post I saw on Instagram months ago. It was a post that somebody made with just like some books that, according to her, would restore your faith in humanity. One of them was a book that is on my sort of like want to read, and so I saved that post in order for me to do this vlog at some point in time. The other idea was to read a like to work on a particular Herkia challenge within a vlog, or work on an r/fantasy bingo line, for example, within a vlog. And the final one, which actually is a vlog that I wanted to repeatedly do throughout 2025 and never happened, so hopefully 2026 is going to be the year in which we do this. The final vlog idea was to have the Storygraph moods decide my reads, and so basically do a spinner wheel with the different moods that Storygraph divides the books in, and thus choose books off of my want to read based on the mood that the Storygraph, the spinner wheel decides for me. This idea has been in my mind since December last year, and I was planning to do it very frequently. I was planning to make it like a series on my channel in 2025, and now it will have to happen in 2026. So I'm not saying that I won't potentially do this in December, that I won't potentially do a spinner wheel to decide on one of these challenges. I'm just trying to avoid making this plan now. Just like if in a moment in December I'm like, you know what, I really want to do this right now, then sure, I will do it. I just don't want to have these plans like presets and then in December feel like, all right, I was also going to do this, right? Let's try to get around to it. And then the final plan for December, which is probably the most likely to actually happen, has to do with my readathon. So in December I host a lottery edition of Game Nightathon, and part of me wants to use this readathon for the Herkiat prompt of completing every prompt, but that would mean 16 books. And so my idea for that had been to do like very small vlogs in which I am choosing a book for every one of the icons and then reading that book within that vlog, and so getting to 16 books like that throughout the month of December. But obviously that is also a massive commitment, because that would mean reading 16 books for it. And while all of these books are sort of like, you know, your typical Christmas rom-com, you know, in book format, it would also definitely like immediately set a mood for December, as in it would be an overwhelmingly Christmas rom-com heavy month. And while I do definitely want to be reading or tackling these books within the month of December, I don't know whether I want to do 16 of them, you know. Like, I have gotten tired of Japanese healing fiction after reading like probably that amount, or maybe less even, across 3 years, let alone if I were to try to read 16 books that are similar to one another in the course of 1 month. So there, I think it might still happen to some extent. Maybe I'll have the spinner wheel kind of like decide which one of the prompts that I'm going to be tackling. It's just definitely one that I'm going to be tackling regardless. I'll definitely do the lobster print, even if like that the spinner wheel weren't to give that to me. But maybe I'll just tackle a few, you know, like maybe I'll just tackle 4, so 1 for every week of the month of December, maybe, you know. But yeah, let's let that be December's Cleo's issue. Maybe we'll start off with the idea that I'm just gonna do 1 and then we'll just go from there. If after that 1 I still want to read another, I'll do another, and let's just keep going to see how long I can go without feeling burned out with this genre, and then just step away from it, for example. So this is probably like the closest you'll get to a confirmation of something that I'll be doing within the month of December. And that is more or less it, but I will definitely say that I will also still be reading Anne of Avonlea in the month of December, because I am joining a read-along for the Anne of Green Gables series by L.M. Montgomery. This read-along is hosted by Barbora from Bookworm Wonder. We read the first book technically in the month of October. However, I had read it in the month of September for Magical Readathon. And in November we were supposed to read Anne of Avonlea, but I didn't get around to it, and so yeah, I will be slotting that into December. That's not gonna be a massive impact on my December reading, I don't think so. I listened to the first one in the course of one day, for example, and I'm expecting the same to happen as well with Anne of Avonlea, which I'll probably just listen to whenever I know the date for the live show. But yeah, that's just to let you guys know. There are 2 books you can expect in December, and that is going to be Anne of Avonlea, and it is going to be Perhaps the Stars by L.M. Montgomery. Those are the December plans. As indicated, they are no plans. They are me being unable to stop planning. And so hopefully, like, the best possible outcome is for me to do none of these things, for me to read the Lobster book, and that will be it. And aside from that, I will read whatever. Oh yeah, I should indicate that, like, that is currently my intention for December, is perhaps to kind of go through my want to read whenever I'm picking up a new book, and like the first book that kind of makes me go like, oh, this is something I've been meaning to read forever. I wish to just start it now. That will be what I'm reading. But similarly, it can also be that, you know, like, I stumble upon a new book in a YouTube video, I see a book in bookstores, and I am like, okay, let's dive straight in, because I'm now super excited about reading this book. So no time like the presents, and let's just get around to it. December is the gift of presents, so let's live in the presents as well. But so yeah, with that I'm gonna end this video. It was scatterbrained, but hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of an insight into my weird brain and my overly planned brain. Let me know if you suffer from this as well. If you are like, if by the time that you're like midway through the current month, your entire plan for the next month is already made when it comes to books, you're already having to be like, yeah, I cannot really add this onto that TBR because that TBR is already looking super stacked. Or if you are normal and just pick up whatever you want within the moment, because that is what I'm trying to get back to. This is what reading was like before I joined BookTube, before I learned about the existence of TBRs, of monthly TBRs, of planning out what you were reading. Before that, I never made plans. Like, I maybe made plans for like the next thing that I'm gonna pick up is this, but I never looked beyond the next book, for example. And so we're trying to get back to that way of thinking. I did it in the past, so hopefully we can get back to it. And yeah, I think key takeaway is I need to reduce the amount of subscription books that come into my life, which is not happening for the beginning of 2026. Because yeah, that's just goes against the sentiment of what I want my 2026 reading to be like. But so yeah, I haven't made my plans yet for 2026, or like my goals yet for 2026, but they give me food for thoughts. But so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys for the next one. Bye!